I'm Tony Ruiz of Gold Derby, and I'm here with, wait for it, Oscar nominated filmmakers, Ross White and Tom Berkeley. Their film, An Irish Goodbye, is nominated for Best Live Action Short. And uh, either one of you can take this first one. I'm just, have you, granted, it's only been a few days, and, have you gotten used to, or will you ever get used to the concept of being known as Oscar nominated filmmakers?
I don't think so. I don't think so. No. It's been a bit of a mad 48 hours ish. Yeah, it's felt a bit like we've been sort of just floating above ground for quite a while. But it's been really lovely. I think, to be honest, like the Oscars for me, I'm from Belfast in Ireland here, and the Oscars has always felt like such an exciting but far away kind of thing. So to be in any way affiliated with that is a bit mind-boggling and mind-blowing for me at least.
Tom, what do you think? I mean, what did you think I mean, at what point does it kind of sink in?
Um, people keep texting you and being like, "Here's your sort of reminder that you're an Oscar nominee now." So that, I mean, that's something that is I suppose I don't know. It's just it's crazy. As Ross said, mind-boggling, I think is a very good word to describe it. It's one of those things that I don't think it will be until we're there, in and around it and amongst it all, and maybe not even then. It might be something that we sort of look back on and think, did that happen? Did that all happen? It just is. It's a crazy. I think anything with that size of a kind of cultural significance, it must be what it's like to, I don't know, go to the Olympics if you're an athlete or something like that. It's that kind of level.
So the film, is one of those. It's such an interesting film to me because I love the title of it, and I'm wondering if you can explain, what specifically makes this, an Irish goodbye.
Yeah, so an Irish goodbye means different things to different folks, but for me, it sort of means the literal version is to sort of sneak out of the party before your time without saying goodbye. And that felt like a really interesting in our story. Our story is about these two estranged brothers who are thrown back together after the death of their mum. So I guess in our story, it sort of refers to the mum passing away before her time without the chance to properly say goodbye. And the sort of what we keep saying is it's a film about grief in a lot of ways, but when you tell people you've made a film about grief, they sort of tense up and feel like they're going to have a terrible time watching it. But actually, we were really interested in kind of subverting that and making a film that's about grief, but also is a definite black comedy and has the sort of is still a joy to watch. I hope, and that was the kind of plan with this film.
So, when I had read that you were inspired. You were at a football game, I believe, and you saw two brothers. And how did that lead into this particular story?
Yeah, so I think, well, me and Ross had already been kind of discussing themes of leaving home and returning home, because we'd both been living in London together for quite a while. We met at drama school originally, trained to be actors, and then moved into filmmaking together. So we decided that we'd leave London. Ross would go back to Ireland. I go back to where I'm from in the West Country in England, so that we had more time to dedicate to filmmaking. So those kinds of themes of like being reintroduced to the family unit and everything that was all kind of percolating at that time. And then, yeah, you're right. I was at the football with my dad. I saw these two brothers a couple rows ahead of us watching the game, and I just found them really compelling. I think what was interesting about them was they were fiery and kind of at each other's throats, as in the kind of typical brotherly way. But what was interesting was that one of the brothers had Down syndrome, and so there was an element of responsibility and care that was there between them, kind of added on top of that as a sort of an additional layer. But it didn't stop their relationship from being kind of combusting, I suppose, in a way, like combative, and like that was a really interesting sort of antithesis. So the next day I just said it kind of offhand to Ross, and I found them really interesting, and I was kind of watching them celebrate and fight and stuff. And then And then it kind of just went from there, and we just found them in really, really interesting characters. And I think for us, we like interesting characters. We like bringing interesting characters into the sort of into protagonists, making protagonists out of them. So we found them really compelling to write, and it just kind of it came from there, really.
So in terms of the casting, the casting had to be perfect. I feel like to create this brotherly bond. And so what was it about these two particular actors that you saw that could make that happen?
Yeah, well, so you're so right. Casting is so important, and it's something that Tom and I really love as part of the process. With these two guys, James Martin, who plays Lorcan, incredible actor from Northern Ireland with Down syndrome. James is just the most charismatic, sort of magnetic kind of guy. As soon as you meet James, everybody who meets him like falls in love with him instantly and becomes his best friend within like 5 minutes. He's just so like open and generous as a person. I knew a bit about James before we started writing the film, but I didn't realize he was an actor. And then it was actually only after we wrote the first draft of the script that we both saw James in his debut sort of performing role in a BBC Northern Ireland TV movie called Ups and Downs. And when we saw him in that, it was the penny kind of dropped, and it was like, there we go. That's our guy for sure, for Lorcan. And when we got him the script, we were just really hoping he would like it. And I think he really connected with the character and the sort of having the chance to play this kind of hopefully like three-dimensional character that has these imperfections and sort of has this this mischievous side and this arc of kind of being the puppet master of everything going on without anybody realizing. So that was James. And then Tom, maybe you could speak about Seamus.
Well, yeah, that's it. Because obviously, a brother pairing, you're right. You've got to get the kind of the other side of the coin and the perfect pairing off of James. So, Seamus O'Hara, who I think we were both aware of Seamus. We'd seen some of his stuff in theatre. He's worked kind of across all mediums. But he sent in just a tape along with everybody else, and it was just another one of those moments where it just jumped off the screen, and it was like, this guy is the character that we've written on the page. And it was just a massive sigh of relief, because it just felt like we'd found both of those guys. And we couldn't offer him the part any quicker. And I think both of them have such a generosity and just a humility about them, that they were just wonderful to work with as well, like incredibly collaborative. And I think on a short film particularly, that kind of spirit goes a long way. And I think it comes through in the film, how much love they poured into it.
Well, and I wanted to ask about, kind of this concept of making a short film seems fraught with its own specific limitations and its own challenges. Can you kind of explain for people who don't understand, is there a conscious difference between making a short film and, say, making a narrative? What are some of the challenges that are unique to this particular genre?
I think the goal, the goal is to always have something that feels like of a feature film, just shorter. You don't want to feel like you're sacrificing quality. It's just a different medium of telling story through film. But in short film, you don't have the infrastructure or the resources of big production companies. Your finance is really, really tiny. So you kind of have to make things work. It kind of going around the houses, you've got to try and get people on board, people to bring energy. You've got to do it all in a tiny amount of time, because you haven't really got the funding to do it over a longer period of time. And I think those are all the challenges that come with it. But I'm of the kind of thinking that those limitations become your strengths, because they make you think about things in a kind of more I suppose kind of, what's the word I'm trying to think of? But you have to kind of think outside the box a little bit more, and everybody has to kind of bring their A game in different ways. So it sort of promotes a different type of creativity, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say, which I think is a great thing.
One of the things that struck me so much about this is that it is a film about grief, and yet it is so funny. like, and I'm curious, as you're writing the script, I feel like the humor is so organic and so like just of comes from the character. Was that always important to include the humor in the story?
Yeah, I think definitely so. I think we've spoken a lot before about the way we both see the world. I think is that the sort of the tragedy and the comedy are never as far apart as they may seem, and there's this sort of tightrope in between the two that we like to kind of write in that space. And I think that it's because we find at least there's a sort of truth to that. And I think that in life, that kind of like weird laugh at a funeral thing, or sort of this, in your darkest moments, there's always light. And in those moments of complete adulation, there's always tragedies just around the corner as well. It's sort of, there's sort of interweaving at all moments. So I think that interests us from a writing point of view. And then I really appreciate you saying that about the sort of comedy feeling organic thing. That was really important for us. I think if we had have just written a whole load of on the page jokes, I think it would have felt very sort of paper thin. But it was really important for us that we identified these characters first. And speaking of the character of Father O'Shea, who plays the priest, who sort of intermediates between the two boys, we sort of started with a prompt of a character who just never knows when to shut their mouth, and just went with that. And that kind of felt quite natural with the comedy then.
But I feel like what is equally important is the voiceover of the mother feels so like it feels like she's there, like she's an equal character. And so in terms of the voiceover, how important was that? And was that a specific challenge, knowing how important that voiceover was going to have to be?
Yes, we knew it was going to be that important, and it was going to kind of, it carries them through the story, and it's really the sort of the emotional sort of heartbeat of the film. And I think voiceover performances are really difficult, oftentimes for it to kind of land. If you've not have a relationship with a character on screen, and you only have a relationship with them kind of from their voice, it's hard for that to oftentimes to really resonate. But I think we were just lucky that the Michelle Fairley, who plays the boy's mother and does the voices, Game of Thrones fans will know Michelle as Catelyn Stark. I mean, she has a huge CV as long as your arm, and is an incredible kind of veteran actor. And she is of the craft and the skill set to be able to kind of meet that challenge. And I think her performance in it is just amazing. And it's the kind of thing that kind of really resonates with us, as when we kind of sit there with a room full of people when we did our first kind of screening for the cast and friends and family, and you get to kind of re-experience the film in that way, and you can really sense that people are being carried along by her work, which is I think it's a great performance from her. So I think I'm glad that you've picked up on it.
One of the it's very interesting. It seems like it's a good year for Irish cinema, particularly reflected at the Oscars this year, not just with your film, but with Banshees of Inisherin and Quiet Girl being nominated international feature. And I'm curious if there is and this might seem like an odd question, is there, do you think, an aspect of cinema that is unique to Ireland? Is there something that makes an Irish film that gives it a certain feeling?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I think in my mind, there's such a strong tradition of storytelling as a part of the culture here. That's just an ingrained part of culture. And I think that, I've always been aware of that, whether that's the sort of the poetry, the theatrical work. And I think that, obviously your side of the pond, the States, the film scene comes from you guys, but I think it's sort of, look, I'm not going to say Ireland's got a sort of this brand new scene, because Ireland have been making brilliant films for a long time, but I think it's maybe taken that little bit longer for it to seem like a feasible kind of thing for artists to go into. And I think that storytelling sort of DNA is hopefully now coming through in the Irish cinema thing, with more and more and more filmmakers sort of seeing that as their way to tell the stories. And I think with, I mean, thank you to even mention our film in the same kind of breath as The Quiet Girl and Colleen Kuhn and Banshees is really surreal, because we love those films and those filmmakers. But I think all three of our films just really sort of, they just lay into story. I can tell it's the love of story that sort of drives them.
So what does this recognition, do for you in terms of just like, whether it presents other opportunities or what, or does it just give you a sense of confidence in the path that you guys are on?
I think it does. Yeah. I think it's things like this. Obviously, you never set out making the thing in the first place to end up anywhere near these kinds of plaudits. And certainly we always try and have a certain confidence in our work that even if people say it's the best thing since sliced bread or it's the worst thing, we can be level-headed in between that somewhere. But definitely proud that the story in the film has kind of resonated to a point that the Academy's been aware of it, that it qualifies, that people are able to see it. And the fact that it gets to this point is it's truly unbelievable. But it's I think I hope for us as emerging filmmakers that this does kind of open doors. We've got lots of stuff we want to do. We've kind of just finished our third short film together now, so I think we want to kick on into longer form stuff and hopefully start working towards a kind of debut feature film. And if something like this can kind of expedite that process or maybe open doors that may have been slightly harder to open previously, then we're ready for that. That's what we want. We're just sort of chomping at the bit really to kind of get cracking and move into longer form work. It's what we've always wanted to get to.
Last question, Oscar night. Are you already thinking about it in your head? Just getting here and being in that space. I mean, what goes through your mind?
Yeah, it is still a bit funny to think about. I don't know. I just keep thinking of the people that we're going to see, the sort of the people who we have for so long looked up to. Like when we found out the other day, I just kept saying Steven Spielberg for like a couple of minutes, because it was just like, you've grown up with those films, you've grown up with like these actors and these like creators and these storytellers, and to be even, I imagine we'll be way down the back of the room and they'll be way up there, but to be in the same room as these people is just it's a really surreal thought. And I don't think the penny is going to drop until we literally see them in the room, and we're going to have to try very hard not to be the little film fans that we are and sort of scream our undying love for Steven Spielberg, because it's just, it's a totally surreal thought.
Well, gentlemen, congratulations. An absolutely lovely film. I hope people get a chance to check it out. An Irish Goodbye. Ross White, Tom Berkeley, thank you so much. Everybody go to goldderby.com, make your predictions for the Oscars, and stay tuned with interviews with more nominees in the coming weeks. Gentlemen, congratulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you very much, Tony. Cheers.